How is everybody? Everybody good? Welcome to the 2016 Conscious Life Expo. I'm your host for the festivities today, Jimmy Church. How is everybody doing? Seriously. Good? All right. It's a little early yet, so let's get the blood pumping, right? All right? Okay. We're going to be speaking about ancient aliens today. And my favorite subject. And everybody here is the best. We're waiting for William. But he's always fashionably late, and he's putting on his necklace. Did I just say that? I did. But we're going to start off with something very, very special. And this is something that we've known about for a couple of months. And everybody here is totally excited. And that is Linda Moulton Howe. Now, it kind of goes like this. Linda is an Emmy award-winning producer. She's a reporter, editor for earthfiles.com. More on that in a second. Investigative reporter for iHeartMedia, Coast to Coast, Premier Networks. She also has a radio show along with me on KGRA. Very proud when she came onto the network. Linda has explored and investigated many ancient landmarks. The last time she was on my show, I read in the introduction every country that she has produced something in. I ran out of breath. Twice. She's been in Turkey, Göbekli Tepe, Egypt, the UK. She has devoted her documentary, film, television, and radio writing and reporting career to productions concerning science, medicine, and the environment. But more than that, that's the easy stuff. I can think of nobody more deserving for a Lifetime Achievement Award than Linda Moulton Howe.
Thank you so much.
Everybody in this room, we all have spent our lives listening to Linda, watching Linda. The time and the dedication that it takes for her to put into earthfiles.com, nobody in this room has any idea. We don't. We really don't. If you go to Earth Files and you look at the work that she does in a week, it's more than most of us do in a year, if not a lifetime. And that is not a joke. I don't know how she does it. Her knowledge and the way that she can get into a subject and then turn around and tell me about it and report on it is extraordinary. The things that she has done, I talk a lot about the phone calls that Linda and I have, but we have them often and they're long, and I learned something. And I just want to share this. I want her to get angry right now, like, Jimmy, slow down. That's private. But it's the truth. We were talking one day, and in one conversation, she had experiences with heads of networks, security agencies, the Department of Defense, and other researchers. And it all happened in like one afternoon. And I'm thinking to myself, I've done nothing with my life. This is a woman that has been there. And when she speaks, we listen. We can learn from her. She knows more than all of us. She's forgotten more than we all know. And I mean that from the heart. I would like to present this Lifetime Achievement Award to the one and only Linda Moulton Howe.
Thank you so much. And orchids are my most favorite flower. Look at this. Oh, this is beautiful. I would like to say thank you to Jimmy, to Q, to Serena, who I call an angel in human clothing. Yes, she is. And I think the Conscious Life Expo has evolved over the years into such an extraordinary gathering of people on so many subjects. And the irony that I feel this morning is that the Lifetime Achievement Award on February 20th, 2016 feels to me at every level as if this is the year that it is all finally maybe going to crack open, that we're not alone in the universe. And so for all of us here at CLE and standing here, this is really the beginning of it. Because once this planet officially, every government, every village has the 3-inch headlines, we're not alone in this universe. And it doesn't matter if it's microbes on Mars or swimming creatures in Enceladus. It doesn't matter. It's the shift, the huge paradigm shift. Thousands of years are about to shift when we say we're not alone in this universe, and then comes the next step. What is the truth about other intelligences in this universe, both manipulating and perhaps trying to help human beings? And that is the door that I have been trying to keep open in my own work for a very long time. That as much as it seems intrusive and to some people perhaps terrifying, I myself am now at a place where I think that we are dealing with allies. And it is learning about those allies, no matter what they look like, no matter where they are from in this whole huge universe. I think something definitely cares about turbulent, agitated Homo sapien, whether they made us or not. And I hope to see some of you at the workshops that I'm going to do in this 2016 Conscious Life Expo, because I'm dealing with those issues and a lot of what I think is the underlying confusion of the different types and agendas. And so I want to thank you for getting up early this morning, Saturday at CLE, and may we all gather here many more times in the coming years under a brand new world, that we're not alone in this universe. That have the non-humans that have heads shaped like a pear. Those are the ones that the government has long referred to as the Ebens, and they think that they are an ally. And they have emphasized that the Ebens say that the cycles of time, that we are in a solar system in which there is a constant repetition through time where the same types of events will happen even if the ingredients are physically different. And that the issue of catastrophe on this planet, which would have eliminated Atlantis, Muir, and going back, and that those would have been absolutely extraterrestrial civilizations on this planet. That the cycles of destruction are something that bother the Ebens, that they're very concerned, and that they have been themselves trying to work with time, trying to change these cycles of catastrophe on this planet, which is a very different view of looking at the big picture of what they're doing. And then secondly, Mike Brown, who recently was in the headlines about the discovery of the huge Neptune-type planet, 7 times the distance of the sun to Neptune from here. It's way out. It's in the middle of the Oort cloud that surrounds our solar system. But it is Mike Brown that I interviewed about 10 years ago. This was before the discovery of Sedna, the red, it's called the red icy planet. And if you think of the sun and then the inner solar system,
And we are in the inner solar system out to where you start getting into the big gaseous planets of Saturn and Jupiter and Uranus and Neptune. And Pluto now a dwarf planet. As you keep going out, you go through what is called the Kuiper Belt that surrounds, we'll call it our sort of more intimate solar system. Then you get into this huge sphere that is called the Oort cloud. And what Mike Brown 10 years ago thinks that he found, because of a perturbation of what they were looking at the time, cometary material, that there is an object that he thinks is a brown dwarf. It's not proved, so you don't see a lot of papers. But his suspicion is that this was supposed to be a binary system, but that it is a dead sun. But the issue of orbital mechanics of two suns that would be a half a light year to 3/4 of a light year apart, it's way out there, then it would affect all of the 8-meter orbital mechanics of planetary bodies. Now, this is not written about beyond a discussion 10 years ago when he was hypothesizing that that may be out there. But the background and the context is that in 2016, we have headlines only a month ago about the discovery of a Neptune-type gaseous planet about a 1/4 to a half light year from here, out in the Oort cloud. So the discovery of what kind of a system we are in is as ongoing as my saying earlier this morning that this feels, 2016, like we really are at the jumping off point to a whole new paradigm, that we're not alone, that our very solar system is not understood at all, and that all of what was described as ancient mythology in the history of this planet were the echoes of actual extraterrestrial habitation of this planet in which they terraformed, collected genetic material over periods of time in and around cycles of catastrophe. That the Ebens have a big picture about wanting to change. Now, none of us can prove, but what I'm trying to suggest is that the pictures that we have had in the past, the last 13 Conscious Life Expos, think of when you were just tranced with the idea of beautiful lights moving in the sky. And that's sort of where people were a few decades ago. And then it evolved through human abductees and confusion about who, what, and why. And today, we are looking at the hard physical evidence of a solar system that is quite different than we thought. When I went to Göbekli Tepe and was standing there at sunrise on June 13, 2012, I did not have an expectation for what I would feel, but I will never forget consciously saying I'm going to face the direct east where the sun comes up from the top of the hill, because Göbekli is resting in a bowl between hilltops. So I'm up in the top of this hill, and I'm looking straight on purpose where the sun came up, with the idea that I'm going to pivot my body 180 degrees, and I don't have any expectation of what I'm going to see when I do that. And when I pivoted 180 degrees, and now I'm looking down, so there's not direct sunlight, because I'm up on the hill, the sun is coming up, but there was no question that there were tips of some of those they're shaped, well, Robert Schock, the geologist who was with us, he said they look like tuning forks. But they have a top, and then they come down, and most of them are 19 feet tall and weigh 10 to 15 tons each. And we know from the 5% that have been excavated, which is a tiny part of what's visible with deep ground penetrating radar, they now know that there's probably 320 to 330 of these, all placed in rings in this hill.
Deliberately buried.
And 1,000 years after they were constructed, buried. But the issue is that morning of seeing the tops of some of these pillars just touched with sunrise, and then deliberately going down into where we'll call it the exposed rings are. What would I feel? That's all I was asking myself. What would I feel walking down there for the very first time and getting as close as I can? And the answer that came into me was, I couldn't feel anything that I could relate to as a human consciousness. Göbekli Tepe, in my life, having literally traveled both hemispheres, is the single most alien, eeriest feeling place I have ever been. To this day, I still don't understand, just like the Smithsonian reporter who reported that it was eerie and unknown. Robert Schoch, the geologist who had done his PhD in Yale, he was up behind me and he came down. He stood next to me that morning and he said, you know, Linda, I have been looking at this from above, trying to think, what in the world could this be for? And he said, it just begins to hit me that the shape of these pillars are like tuning forks. And I keep having an impression that this whole thing was built to resonate in a specific frequency from something above. The world Stonehenge appears to have been built to resonate with a 10 hertz frequency, which is the alpha frequency of the human mind in meditation. If you go to Malta, there is a chamber underneath the island of Malta where they have found that there are frequencies that the rocks resonate very specifically, and they also are in this category of a frequency of the human mind in meditation. And around the world, there are archaeologists now who are beginning to step out, just like some people who have been trying to tread around the areas of the UFO phenomena. Is it really extraterrestrial? That in archaeology, that where there are so many stone structures in unexpected places, and they are beginning to see that there are relationships and matches between one stone area in one part of the world and another, and pretty soon you begin to see what the people in the human abduction syndrome have always said. We're dealing with intelligence that looks at the planet as a spherical geometry, and that latitude, longitude on one side of the planet has an antipode, an opposite point on the other, and that we are dealing with intelligences that have been relating to this planet and other bodies through our solar system in spherical geometric terms, and that is truly why ancient, whether they are stone circles, whether they are ziggurats, whether they are pyramids, intelligences worked with stone, perhaps because in this solar system, on this planet, it would last the longest. But the positioning of all of these stone architectures back through time are related to a mind that works differently than ours, interacting with magnetic fields and planetary bodies. And if they are concerned about catastrophes coming in cycles, and something is trying to interfere with that, the very nature of the stone sites like Göbekli Tepe may be the residue in between of an ET, an extraterrestrial mind, trying to build something that would have a function and would last, and leaves us with these huge enigmas that I've been trying for my professional life to understand and to share with you whatever facts I could bring to bear. It has been a very difficult path, but it feels like the sun is about to come up on some truth. And I hope you'll join me tomorrow at noon for that workshop, and the next day I have one that begins at 5, and it's a big long one on Monday. So we'll be on panels in between, and I can't thank you all enough for being here this morning on this very special morning that feels to me like a transition from the beginning chapter to maybe getting into the guts of the book.
Thank you, Linda. Now, Serena, are you the cards? Okay, we're going to hand out cards for questions. One of my favorite things to do, especially on panels, is to hear from all of you. So we're going to do that, and we will be handing
all the way back to the early 80s in one of these discussions that before you came I had been talking about having, I think, legitimately substantive discussions with two different men that I combined in my third book, Glimpses Volume 2, is a man named Sherman, but it was two different agency people. And following up what you just said, all the way back then, they both said to me that the extraterrestrial biological entities, the one the government has referred to as EBINs, that their concentration is not so much on the container itself, but the recycling of the soul entity. And that I had a time came when I was going to be given the chance to talk to the man who lived at Los Alamos from 49 to June 18, 1952 with one of the non-humans that was kept at Los Alamos. It's a big long story about why this came, but this is what was being arranged. That I would be able to ask him questions about EBA-1 directly because he was dying of prostate cancer in a hospital in San Antonio, and that allegedly I had this approval and had an airline ticket, destinations, everything was set up. And I was to leave on a morning, and at midnight I got a phone call and said, sorry, the approval for this has been rescinded. We don't know why, but don't get on the airplane. But what happened is within 2 weeks, I got another communication. These are with people that I think genuinely were working in what we'll call broadly MJ-12. They said, you do a list of questions, and they gave me a specific address, and we will present these questions to this man, and we'll send you back whatever he writes. So I sent a list of questions, and within about another 2 weeks, I got back all of my questions with some written answers. And one of my questions was provoked by things I had encountered both with abductees and some of these agency people about the creation of containers, specifically for trying to evolve souls and recycle. So I had asked, one of my questions was, is reincarnation real? And in the answer to the side it said, reincarnation, the recycling of souls, is the machinery of the universe. But here's the kicker. Another one of the answers related to one of my questions was, the EBINs communicate that in this universe, and it was stressed this universe, there are only a limited number of souls where there are exponentially expanding containers. And that mystery, that strange sentence, everything that we know about the whole issue of yin and yang, black and white, positive, negative, male, female, what are these polarities in this universe, and what would that mean if there were more containers than there were souls, and that souls had to be constantly recycled for reasons that are still not clear. So I offer this as something I really never talked about before right now, that I was exposed to in the 1980s, and in fact I'm going into much more tomorrow in my workshop at noon. But I think that there is something very physical about the recycling of souls in and out of specific containers, and that the whole issue of bloodline, cells, and DNA are where the big action is. And here we are, a population that is on the petri dish. We haven't got a clue of what is looking down onto this. And so in a very interesting way, the 1980s discussion and what you just said sort of come together this morning.
Thank you, Linda. Well, real quick, before I fire up the cards and get back to this, I'm actually going to start with Mike. I'm going to give everybody 3 words. You get 3. You go to 4. 3 words. The best evidence that we have been visited by ancient ET. You get 3 words. The best evidence. You're in court right now. Mike Barrett, 3 words. Can't do it. Celeste.
The D&M pyramid.
The what pyramid?
D&M pyramid.
The D&M pyramid. Really?
That's
okay. Yeah, that's
I
interesting.
stole that from Jay. Yeah, Jason's not gonna be.
Celeste, 3 words. You can do it.
DNA belief systems.
Excellent. 3 words.
Cheops, animal mutilations.
There you go. Jason.
Wow. I'm gonna try Dendera and Giza overall.
What's 4 words?
That's 4 words. No, it's got a hyphen. There's a hyphen. William, 3 words.
The human body.
The human body. Now I've got to give you 50. We're going to go around the microphone and take questions. Do you guys want to take some questions? Or would you like to ask questions, I should say? Yes?
We want to take questions.
I have one here that brought up the stone spheres that have been found around the world, right? And they're old and they're all the same and they're large. But it reminded me of this. From the very first episode, and I bet you I can get a round of applause out of this room right now. From the very first episode of Ancient Aliens back in 2008, one of the things that was presented from every episode forward was megalithic structures around the world, okay? And the argument that comes back at that from the other side is you're not giving ancient man enough credit, man. They were really smart. Man, they built the pyramids, man, with rocks, man. They really did it.
Yeah.
But the point is, Ancient Aliens really did a lot for presenting that side of things that a lot of people that have never even heard, believe it or not, about these, from Puma Punku to Tiahuanaco to Göbekli Tepe, and on and on and on. Now it's exposed to the world. So I have to ask, I want to ask the panel right now, and I want this crowd to go, yay, church, yes. Is what's wrong with that argument? What is wrong with saying we had some help, some knowledge came from somewhere? It's okay. We're not discrediting primitive man. I'm just saying that he was foraging for seeds. He didn't have the intelligence to build what was built out there, and if he got some help, it's okay. Can we change academia just a little bit to agree that maybe they got some information from somewhere, from the heavens, from a lost civilization, but we need to change the way that we look at things. Everybody agree?
Just start with the timeline, and I'll be really brief. If it is true that extraterrestrial biological entities manipulated DNA in already evolving primates to create Homo sapien, We are new on the planet. And it is very clear that Göbekli Tepe alone pushes its construction back to 12,000. And there are people in this government who say that they have proof that 3 competing extraterrestrial civilizations were building, terraforming, and harvesting genetic material from this planet 270 million years ago.
That's right, that's right.
Now, 270 million to, if you take the modern container that we are sitting here, there it goes to 35,000 to 40,000 years ago in this transition from Neanderthal to Homo sapien. Neanderthal didn't know it was being replaced by Homo sapien, and neither did any of the other models going back. So if you start with the big box of what alleged government documents say, ETs made us. The ETs were here so long before a standing-up primate that the question is, in a sense, not addressing what appears to be right in front of us, that the evolution of life on this planet has been one in which there's been punctuated periods of extraterrestrial civilizations, and we are new. And the issue is, what is this new container with its spiritual force? What is the vested interest that maybe more than one non-human civilization out there has in this planet, this solar system, and what we are? And we have been kept in the dark on purpose by power grids that have wanted us to think that we were the only life in this huge universe. That is the upside down, strange power that something wanted to keep us in the dark. And this is where, right now, I think that the explosion and liberation could be coming to just even crack that open.
Right, right.
So, ancient stone spheres, Göbekli Tepe, the agrarian Homo sapien was not making those. And you don't.
The new container is Jason Martell. Just look at this guy. Just look at this guy. Well, Jason, I didn't mean to cut you off, Linda, but the argument with that we're not giving ancient man enough credit is absurd as it sounds. That's what they're standing on. Okay, do we have questions from the audience? We do. Serena is going to run around with the microphone. And while she's doing that, really quick, okay, go ahead. What's your name?
Wayne Worden.
Hi, Wayne. How are you?
Okay, I'm feeling great.
You look great. That's all that matters. It's better to look great than to feel great. That's what they say.
Well, I've had a near-death experience and enlightenment and all, and I find that everything is consciousness, and we've gotten our problems with the separation. It's all about separation that has caused our downfall.
Yes, so that's a statement, not a question. But you know what's funny is that's all we've been talking about the last 2 days here at the Conscious Life Expo, and I think that we can all feel that, and I totally agree with that. Thank you so much.
And Jimmy, why was this model, this latest model, made non-telepathic? What if all of the previous ones, Neanderthal and going back, were telepathic, as the non-humans appear to be in every experience that
You know, and Celeste mentioned something earlier on that when she said, no weapons have been found.
Well,
right?
Yeah, but maybe part of this experiment with this current model is
Sure.
the very fact that it has been made island to island to island.
Right, right.
No human is in the other person's mind or feet. And there may be something about this separation which is both the huge problem that we all have, that turns then a challenge for the soul to keep the ego in check for the evolution outward, because everything is from an individual out, not the hive,
That's
not
right,
the group.
that's right.
And it may be that that is one of the big players in whatever this new experiment is.
No question. Okay, we had right there, Celeste.
Celeste is Serena.
Hi, Gary Spake from Orange County, Yukon. It's kind of a statement, but a question to Celeste. The sacred feminine, the best way we can protect that is stop inoculating our pregnant women with mercury. All these inoculations, and then this crazy stuff with this, what do they call it, cloud seeding. All the aluminum is getting down there too. Aluminum and mercury together just kill children.
I'm a very heavy-duty anti-vaxxer, so I'm with you 100%. But when we look at the paradigm, you know, not to beat a dead horse here, but when you look at a paradigm that has suppressed women, that has suppressed 50% of a population for thousands and thousands of years, we have to ask ourselves, what are we missing through that suppression? Think about that for a minute. Why isn't there a female Mozart? Why isn't there a female Bach? Well, there's a very interesting twist to this, and that is because in the early days of ancient civilizations, my friend Julia Stonehouse wrote a wonderful book called Idols to Incubators. When we went from being the mother goddess and we slipped into where the males believed they were the seed waterers, and then slipped into the paradigm of carrying the seed, that the male was the only parent. I'm not sure that unless you read this book you'll understand what I'm really talking about, but up until 1900, nobody knew that the female had anything to do with parentage, because the concept of the female having and contributing 23 chromosomes and the male contributing 23 chromosomes was not discovered until 1900. So for those thousands of years, going back to 3400 BC, it was all about the seed of life coming from the male. And it's a scientific error that has caused men to veil, circumcise, keep them from being educated, keep them from inheriting, because they had to protect where their seed was planted so that they knew that they were the father. In the ancient civilizations, without the walls and without the weapons, everyone knew who the parent was. But from the seed waterer Enki on, through the Greeks, through the Romans, through our modern times, you will see that it has always been about suppressing the woman to protect where their seed was planted. Let's get over it, let's forgive the men for this, but we must also understand how much of our world population, generation after generation, has been suppressed. So we're clearly in a mess because of the suppression of the feminine. Yes, we're vaccinating our children, we're vaccinating pregnant women, we're feeding them horrible food, we're feeding them horrible thoughts, we're suppressing the presence of our ancient ancestors, and we have the power to make the change. It's not about the Illuminati and the 1%. It's about us, with every purchase we make, with every word we say, with every, we have the power. We are the 99% that can make the difference. But trust me, we've got to elevate our baby girls, and we've got to stop telling them that they're a bossy little girl, you know, that they're dominating. That's a compliment. Rise, ladies, rise and take your place in this new paradigm, in this new shift, and support your beloved sacred partners, and let's partner up with the gender of your choice and make a difference.
Thank you, Celeste. And I want to thank everybody. First off, Mike Barra, thank you. Celeste Yarnall, thank you so much. Linda Moulton Howe, thank you so much. Jason Martell, William Henry, and I would like to keep everybody here for just a second, but because we have to take some pictures with Linda and the Lifetime Achievement Award.
And I want to,
really
Serena-
quick,
Serena.
Serena's got an announcement.
Yeah, I have a couple of announcements. I'm probably going to sing things.
Yes, go, good.
Linda was saying that she was speaking at 12. She actually has her workshop at 4 o'clock tomorrow, but we have our UFO panel, my UFO panel here, right here, tomorrow at noon. So please be here for that. It's going to be fantastic. And of course, Linda's also on that panel too. And then she'll be speaking at 4. Also, I just want to let you know, being sure all UFO researchers and interested in the paranormal, Grant Cameron, Canadian researcher, he is speaking today at 4 o'clock upstairs. So please don't miss Grant Cameron. Okay, so I'll see you tomorrow at noon right here. Thank you.
Thank you, Serena.